Hey guys, recently I made a video about the 80,000 Bitcoin that was sold through Galaxy Digital and the legal notices that were sent out through the Solomon brothers. But that video, I did it in the context of the person that I thought was selling it, which I thought was the Cubic founder, Sergey Ivancheglo, which is a really interesting story. And I'll share that video at the end of this video if I remember to do that. But just today for this video, I want to steer away from talking about Cubic or CFB or Sergey Ivancheglo and what part I think he played in it, and just discuss the story of that 80,000 Bitcoin being sold through Galaxy Digital, the Solomon Brothers legal notices, and what this means for the crypto market in general, or could potentially mean, because it's crazy and it's a story that did not get much publicity. And the shit is about to hit the fan on this story, basically, in the next few days or early October, if everything is to be believed. So that's what I'm going to discuss in this video, and it's a really, really interesting story. So let's get into it. So yeah, guys, where this started was last July, I think late June, early July last year. These notices through this thing called OP return. Don't want to get into too much detail on what an OP return is, but let's just call it, for the sake of this video, a message. So an OP return message was sent to some Bitcoin wallets, 8 Bitcoin wallets precisely, and they all had 80,000 Bitcoin in them. And in those messages, it said that, well, firstly, actually, this was said. First, he said, on June the 30th, one of the wallets, this is what happened, and the same thing happened with other 8 wallets. It said that a legal notice, we have taken possession of this wallet and its contents. And then on June 30th, again, it said, not abandoned, prove it by an on-chain transaction private key by September 30th. And then on July 3rd, it said notice to owner, and it had a link to a legal documentation about taking control of an abandoned wallet. And then, really interesting, on the 4th of July, so Independence Day, it sent the lost numbers. So the numbers from the TV show Lost were sent. Then 37 minutes after receiving the lost numbers, the 10K Bitcoin transferred everything out of the wallet. And then in a similar way, all the other 8 Bitcoin wallets that contained exactly $10,000, 10,000 Bitcoin, transferred out all theirs after receiving these same messages. But only 3 of the wallets received these lost numbers, which was interesting as well. But they all got these legal notices. Then after that happened, another set of wallets were targeted. As far as I know, it's 114,000 early stage Bitcoin wallets were targeted with similar messages. And they said it was through these messages, through an OP return, and said, this digital wallet appears to be lost or abandoned. Our client has entered into constructive possession of it and is attempting to determine whether it has a good faith owner. The owner is given 90 days to prove control. If the owner does not respond after the deadline, the wallet will be considered abandoned and may be presented to a court as evidence of renunciation or similar legal consequence. Now, as far as I know, that 80,000 Bitcoin was transferred out on the 4th of July, and then these messages were sent on the 15th of July to 14,000 different wallets. So for these legal notices, the 30th of September was the final date of those notices. And for these ones, 90 days on from these notices being sent would be the 5th of October. So early in October. And then just a similar, so these are kind of, it's hard to get the exact phrasing that they use because I can't access this website anymore, but it was similar. This is a paraphrase of how it was written. It said, notice to owner, see this website. And it said, the owner has provided 90 days to respond to this notice. We have taken possession of this wallet and its contents, not abandoned, proven by an on-chain transaction. And this was actually the ones for the first 8 wallets. These earlier ones were for, this first list of details here, this was for the wallets that were sent out, were sent to wallets on the 5th of July to 14,000 wallets after 80,000 Bitcoin was transferred out mysteriously from ancient Bitcoin wallets that hadn't been touched since 2011. So here's what happened to those Bitcoin. So an early Bitcoin investor had sold 80,000 Bitcoin through Galaxy Digital. So Galaxy Digital was an intermediary they used in what the digital asset company described as one of the largest notional transactions in crypto history. So details regarding the date and execution price were not disclosed. Now, really important thing was this was an investor sold the 80,000 Bitcoin through Galaxy Digital. Galaxy Digital wasn't the investor themselves. Galaxy Digital's disclosure of the sale first appeared on PR Newswire late Friday, followed by a post on the company's official blog about 30 minutes later. Cointelegraph reached out to Galaxy Digital for further details on the transaction, and although the company declined to comment further, they did confirm the authenticity of the press release. So they said, yeah, that happened. Galaxy did not reveal the client's identity, so there is a client, or maybe it's a group of people. I have a feeling it's probably Satoshi that's doing this, but can't prove that. But stated that the transaction was part of the investor's broader real estate planning strategy. This announcement came on a day of heightened volatility for Bitcoin, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, that 80,000 Bitcoin would have been sold, I can't remember, it's the number $6 billion or $9 billion it would have been sold for. Sold for a lot of money anyway, billions and billions of dollars. It was sold for. And then right after this, that person targeted 113,778 Bitcoin was. So basically 114,000 was. It deemed abandoned by embedding the messages in transactions to these wallets. The messages directed recipients to a website where they were given 90 days to prove ownership, either by making an on-chain transaction or submitting personal identification documents. Notably, the OneFeex wallet, which is a famous wallet associated with the Mt. Gox hack and holding approximately 80,000 Bitcoin, was among the high-profile addresses targeted. Now, an important thing about these early Bitcoin addresses is they use something like PH2HK, something like that, I don't know, but it's old security standards, so they are more easily hackable. And what it seems like is somebody is claiming that they can hack these wallets or will be able to in the near future, and they're claiming the contents of those wallets. The initiative has sparked debate within the cryptocurrency community regarding the legitimacy and ethical implications of claims over dormant digital assets. So I think all of Satoshi's wallets will be included in this, and this is the breakdown of what was sent to those wallets. It said that the wallet appears to be lost or abandoned. Our client has entered into constructive possession of it. They've given 90 days to prove control. If the owner does not respond after the deadline, the wallet will be considered abandoned and may present to court as evidence of renunciation. So probably on the 5th of October, somebody is going to try and claim these wallets. Whether they'll be able to access them now isn't clear, but they might be trying to get ownership of them now, and then maybe when there's a quantum or a better way of attacking them, they will attack those wallets. It's interesting stuff. So this is a Binance article about this, and they just said, update, something worrying about the 80k Bitcoin that recently moved from old wallets. Hidden messages are warning about a major disaster for Bitcoin. Looks like whoever moved them planned this for years. You've probably seen the news about the 80,000 Bitcoin that suddenly moved from wallets thought to be lost since 2011. There's a lot behind these transfers that's worrying, and few people have noticed it yet. First, all the wallets involved are identical. They all use the old P2P-KH standard from Bitcoin's early days. So a weaker security standard, as far as I understand. Each one holds exactly 10,000 Bitcoin and had no outgoing transactions since 2011. This strongly suggests that they all came from the same owner. What's really strange are the hidden OP return messages sent just before these wallets were drained. Take the address, this one. It has 63 transactions in total, but before July 1st, 2025, it never received an OP return. So these are the 80,000 and the messages that they received just before they were drained. The first OP return came on July 1st, 4 days before the wallet was emptied. Now, I think that's incorrect. I think one came on 30th of June or whatever. We won't argue over that. It says, legal notice, we have taken possession of this wallet and its contents. At that point, it just looked like a meaningless legal fluff. No one was taking this message seriously. 25 minutes later, a second OP return hit the same address. Not abandoned, prove it by an on-chain transaction using the private key by September 30th. This article goes on to say, I'm convinced it's the same person sending it, even though he pretends it's a challenge from someone else. I don't think they are, but it seems pretty clear it's the same person. 2 days later, a third OP return arrived, this time linking to a legal front page explaining, where do we go there? Sorry. 2 days later, a third OP return arrived, this time linking to a legal front page explaining the procedure for claiming ownership of abandoned funds. It looked like the groundwork for draining the wallets under a self-made legal framework. So this was the Salomon Brothers website, which I can't access now, but it was a link. You click on the link, it brings you to Salomon Brothers website, which is a legitimate legal entity, and they had a whole legal breakdown for how they were going to try and claim this wallet through something got to do with abandoned assets that have been abandoned for a certain period of time. The fourth OP return wasn't plain text at all. It was just this sequence, which was 4, 8, 15, 16, 23, 42. And I mean, what does that mean? It took me a while. This is what the writer says. It took me a while to get it, but these are the famous numbers from the TV series Lost. So these are famous numbers from that TV series from the early 2000s called Lost. In the show, these numbers have been typed into a computer regularly to prevent a disaster. In Lost, the system failed and it triggered a global catastrophe. I think if the system failed, I can't remember if the system actually did fail, and it would trigger a global catastrophe. So that's why they would enter the numbers into the system. If they didn't enter them into the system, it would trigger a global disaster. I see this as a hidden warning about the possible consequences of this exploit. It might be much bigger than we think. This number sequence was sent to only 3 of the 8 exploited wallets, each exactly 3 minutes apart. That shows real planning and strong technical skill. The person behind this wants it to be part heist, part art piece. Another odd detail, one of the destination addresses contains the word fuck. That's not a coincidence. Generating a Bitcoin address with 4 custom characters takes huge computing power and about 12 million tries or a few minutes with a high-end machine. So most likely that word fuck appearing in one of these addresses wasn't a coincidence, but it could be a coincidence, but there's a chance it wasn't. It's interesting that it appears in it. Back to that legal front. It was deployed 24 hours before the Bitcoin moved and updated just hours before the transfer to add a clause allowing a representative to claim the funds on the owner's behalf, supposedly to protect their identity. Again, this shows that everything was planned down to the last detail. It's a mix. I just want to read that again. Back to that legal front. It was deployed 24 hours before the Bitcoin moved and updated just hours before the transfer to add a clause allowing to, so it added a clause allowing someone to claim on behalf of the owner of the wallet just to protect their identity. Okay, that's interesting. Again, this shows that everything was planned down to the last detail. It's a mix of legal maneuvering and artistic messaging. The person behind this clearly wants to tell us something. One thing is certain, this is far from over. So, I mean, we've got loads of legal stuff in here, but the timing of how all this was done was interesting. And then having the lost numbers in there is something really artistic, and it's foreshadowing something, or should be foreshadowing something. At least that's what we can think. So let's talk about those lost numbers. So this is Desmond here, by the way. Okay, I love this show back in the day. But the lost numbers refers to the sequence 4, 8, 15, 16, 23, 42, which are central to the TV show Lost. These numbers are a recurring motive throughout the series, originating from a transmission received by a Navy listening post and later used by the character Hurley to win the lottery. They are tied to the island's mysterious nature, representing fate and appearing on things like a hatch, computer, or lighthouse, and as candles to protect the island. And when you add all the numbers together, it equals 108, which is interesting in a second. I'll explain why. But those numbers, where I think this could be linked and is foreshadowing for what's going on with Bitcoin, is this guy Desmond in the show Lost stayed in the bunker. And every 108 minutes, so that's where this is relevant, every 108 minutes, he'd have to enter these numbers into a computer. And he was told that if he didn't enter those numbers into the computer, a global disaster would happen. And the thing about poor Desmond is it was driving him crazy because he didn't know if that was true, but he was scared that if he missed entering those 108, entering those numbers in every 108 minutes, it would happen. So he kept making sure to enter them in. So is this person who sent out this legal notice with this message, with these numbers, are they saying that something disastrous is going to happen? Or are they saying that they're trying to prevent something disastrous happening? Because possibly they could be saying they want to claim these wallets before someone far more nefarious does the same thing, which is an interesting subtext. So this is just from another article, some interesting things I saw. So the most intriguing discovery remains to come. The episode Orientation of Lost, where Desmond reveals the crucial importance of these numbers, which must be entered every 108 minutes to save the world, was first broadcast on ABC on October 5th, 2005. Now, the day that the person is going to be able to claim ownership, once the 90 days are up for those 114,000 wallets, is October 5th, 2025 of this year. So exactly 20 years later than that deadline. So, I mean, someone is being really artistic here, and they've picked this deadline to coincide with Lost and sent the Lost numbers. And on the 5th of October this year, they are saying they're going to be able to claim these wallets and all these Bitcoin. Now, bear in mind, the amount of Bitcoin that is in those 114,000 wallets, I'm just guessing, but you're probably talking about 10 or 20% of this whole supply of Bitcoin. I mean, it's probably going to include all of Satoshi's wallets, anything that's left from Hal Finney, all the early Bitcoin miners. Bearing in mind that haven't been selling their Bitcoin or claiming their Bitcoin. Bearing in mind that the early Bitcoin wallets all held 50 Bitcoin, or when you were an early Bitcoin miner, you'd mine one block of Bitcoin and you'd get 50 Bitcoin for mining one block. Nowadays, you only get a fraction of the Bitcoin. There was also Bitcoin faucets back in the day, and you could press this little faucet and it would give you a Bitcoin every day. I think it might even give you 10 Bitcoin. I'm not sure. So imagine you could have just been printing yourself out $100,000 or $1 million per day just by hitting this little faucet button, because no one thought Bitcoin was going to be a big deal. But now imagine the amount of those wallets, because this is targeting all these early untouched wallets, 114,000 of them. Imagine how many Bitcoin are in all those wallets. I mean, it's crazy. So they said then that this temporal coincidence is statistically impossible. So when they talk about the 20 years later, it confirms that the operation was conceived as a total narrative work. So this is a narrative work. It's a plan. Someone's telling a story here where every detail has meaning. The entity behind this operation does not simply perform a technical exploit. It signs a cryptographic performance of unparalleled sophistication. Notes that the date of these movements was 4th July, and actually that's just some rubbish that I was talking about in something else in my last video, which is interesting too. So the bigger picture of this is, like I said, somebody on the 5th of October is going to, through legal action, they believe, claim ownership to any of those 114,000 wallets that didn't prove their own ownership. And then the question is, are they able to access those Bitcoins or take control of those wallets? If they can now, I mean, that's crazy. But maybe they're even just foreshadowing for 2 or 3 years' time. They believe there'll be some sort of hack for them to be able to get into those wallets, then something quantum computing related or AI related. So maybe that's when they believe that they'll be able to get into those wallets. But imagine what that is going to do for the crypto space. And I mean, I'm saying probably not in a good way. Either that person wants to protect all those Bitcoin and is going to protect it from being hacked by someone else. Maybe it's Satoshi trying to hide their own identity, so they're actually hacking their wallets, and someone else is going to sell them, and everyone's going to look and go, well, it wasn't Satoshi, it's some other mysterious figure that stole Satoshi's coins. And that would be a great way of Satoshi forever hiding their identity. But if that person accesses 10 or 20% of the whole Bitcoin supply and starts dumping it on the market, I mean, good luck and curtains. It's going to be crazy. Look, I have no idea what's going to happen with this story, but man, is it interesting, and man, is it got enough media coverage. And I imagine on the 5th of October, you're going to see this get way more media coverage. It's just exciting to see how that plays out. Anyway, I've got nothing else to say about it, guys. That's all I've got for today. I'll share that video now about who I think is moving those coins and how I think it's the guy from Cubic, CFB, and why I think there's some really interesting stuff in there that I found that I think links him to all of this. Could be wrong about that, but but time will tell. That's all I've got for you today, guys. I'll see you all on the outside.